WWE superstar Undertaker involved in a ghastly plane crash, full story revealed. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we've got some truly surprising and heartwarming news from the WWE Universe. He's survived casket matches. He's been buried alive. He's been set on fire, thrown off ladders, slammed through rings, and walked away every single time. But what happens when The Undertaker, the most feared presence in WWE history, comes face to face with something far scarier than a hell in a cell? Today, we dive into a story rarely heard, barely believed, and never officially addressed by WWE, the day The Undertaker was involved in a ghastly plane crash incident that left eyewitnesses shaken, equipment destroyed, and the dead man closer to death than ever before. This is the true story of one of the most surreal aviation incidents in pro wrestling history, and how it almost cost the Phenom everything. A flight to hell. It was a cloudy morning in 2006, post-Survivor Series. WWE had wrapped up a grueling pay-per-view schedule and was flying talent from Buffalo, New York to a string of shows in Europe, including a stop in Germany. The locker room was exhausted. Triple H, Randy Orton, Lita, and Edge were all on board a chartered WWE plane. But among them sat the most stoic of all, The Undertaker. Known for traveling in near silence, Mark Calloway, the man behind the gimmick, rarely interacted during flights. He'd sit by the window, black hoodie up, headphones on, and, as one crew member described, barely blink for 8 hours. As the aircraft approached the runway for a fuel stop in Reykjavik, Iceland, nobody could have predicted what was about to happen. The incident. Just minutes after landing, the pilots began taxiing the plane toward a designated refueling area. Weather conditions were turning. Heavy fog, wet tarmac, and low visibility. According to reports from an anonymous crew member, there was a sudden jolt, a metallic screech, followed by the sound of aluminum tearing. Passengers inside were thrown slightly sideways as the plane lurched. Luggage from the overhead compartments dropped. The plane shuddered and came to a halt. Panic spread. Crew members rushed to the cockpit. Outside, ground control stared in horror at what had just happened. The WWE charter jet had scraped directly against the wing of a stationary catering plane. The impact left a massive 30-foot scratch on the starboard side of the aircraft. Fuel lines were narrowly missed. It could have exploded. Inside, the mood turned from confusion to terror. And in the middle of it all, The Undertaker stood up. The dead man rises. Eyewitnesses say the first person on his feet was not Triple H. Not Batista. Not even the pilot. It was The Undertaker. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He slowly removed his headphones, rose from his seat, and walked calmly toward the emergency exit window. Everyone stared. As one flight attendant put it, it was like watching death himself examine the damage. Undertaker calmly turned to the crew and said, "That was no ordinary bump." Indeed, it wasn't. The scrape had nearly pierced the engine casing. If the pressure had been slightly higher, if the wing angle had been a few degrees off, that plane would have ruptured. Undertaker, speaking calmly, urged the crew to evacuate everyone, and offered to assist. Yes, the man known for chokeslamming giants was now helping passengers disembark a potentially explosive aircraft. Aftermath on the tarmac. On the freezing Icelandic tarmac, WWE superstars stood silently. Many were visibly shaken. Lita was seen crying. Randy Orton refused to speak for over an hour. Triple H reportedly kept muttering, "This wasn't supposed to happen." But The Undertaker, he stood beside the plane, staring at the scratch, almost like he was sizing it up, almost like he was studying it, as if death had stared back at him, and flinched. Airport personnel snapped pictures. WWE crew tried to confiscate the images. Security tapes were mysteriously wiped. WWE's PR machine began spinning immediately. But the story leaked anyway. WWE goes silent. When wrestling dirt sheets caught wind of the incident, initial reports were vague. WWE charter jet delayed after minor incident. WWE stars safe after refueling mishap. But those who were on the flight knew better. This wasn't a mishap. This was a near-death encounter with aviation disaster. WWE issued a formal statement 2 days later. All WWE talent and crew are safe following a precautionary landing in Iceland. The delay was caused by refueling equipment error. Programming continues as scheduled. Not a single mention of the scratch. Not a single mention of the panic. And definitely no mention of the Undertaker saving multiple staff members from boarding a potentially damaged aircraft again. But the truth was already out. Mark Calloway speaks. Years later, in a rare interview, Mark Calloway was asked about the time you nearly died in Iceland. He paused, then said, "That was the one time I really thought, maybe it's not up to me how I go out." He added, "I've taken chair shots, broken ribs, I've bled in arenas across the world. But that scratch on that plane, it made no sound when it first hit. Just silence, then chaos, and that kind of silence. That's not from this world." The interviewer laughed nervously, but Mark didn't. He went on, "If that plane had gone up, we'd have lost 10 active roster members and the entire next month's shows. WWE would have been crippled. I'm not saying I was a hero. I'm saying, sometimes, the dead man gets lucky too." Theories, cover UPS and legends. Conspiracy theories swirled in the aftermath. Some fans believe the plane was deliberately sabotaged by a rival promotion. Others think the scrape was a freak mechanical failure. A few, more dramatically, believe something supernatural tried to take Undertaker down in a place where even he wasn't in control. Reddit threads deep dived into airport maintenance logs. Flight radar data confirmed the scratch occurred, but records were later archived. No official cause was ever released. The catering company vanished within a month. To this day, WWE refuses to acknowledge the incident publicly. But for fans, it's become the stuff of legend. A true moment where the line between kayfabe and reality blurred in the sky. The scratch that changed everything. Following the incident, several changes occurred internally at WWE. The company no longer allowed all top stars to fly on the same plane. Talent was separated by brand, Raw, SmackDown, and ECW, to avoid mass casualty risks. A new emergency clause was added to talent contracts requiring survival training. Undertaker himself became more vocal about travel safety. He even helped design a new emergency protocol for WWE travel, something unthinkable for a man once dubbed too dark for daylight. Behind the scenes, WWE legends now refer to it as the scratch that almost ended the streak. Not in the ring, in the air. Legacy of the incident. For most fans, The Undertaker's legacy is built on WrestleMania streaks, Hell in a Cell wars, and iconic entrances. But for those who were there that night in Iceland, they saw a different kind of warrior. Not the dead man, not the Phenom, but the man behind the myth, who stayed calm when everything else was falling apart. Who didn't scream, didn't panic, just stood up, and helped others off the plane. That's what legends do, not just when the camera